PC stuff.
Sorry, I'm hitting the record. I don't know if you still want to use names at this point. I guess this is what I'm saying, but yeah,
Oh no,
this is the Patreon portion. Yeah, I
I,
just know. Yeah, you keep your privates a little private. Wait, that sounds horrible when you say it that way.
well, I mean, I do because neither of them have social media accounts.
Right, right.
So
Yeah,
it's like, okay, they're choosing to not be on there, so I don't need to put them on the internet without choice. You know what I'm saying?
what does
So
Hana have? I think Hana was just on a few gaming boards. Again for like casualish games. But yeah. Yeah. I just had that wild idea to send you yesterday. That seems like doable if you can fake his lifeboat and get a green screen. Did you see my note?
yeah,
You just have some insane entertainer like taking over the boat and shooting people.
no, I like it. I mean, look back here. We could. I mean, that whole wall's a green screen.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
could
If you can fake a
pretty
boat,
much do whatever we
I mean, you
want.
just or just do a Muppet show like a wooden wall do the trick.
Oh yeah, no, no, we have. Gosh, we've built all kinds of stuff. But a boat would be the easiest probably.
But yeah, I just had an image of Divine as the captain of the lifeboat. Yeah,
Yeah, no, that's awesome. No, we've a lot of what we do with this is add people into things, like film them in front of that and then stick them in as like a ghost or uh there's one where someone miniaturizes another character, and so yeah, we filmed the small version of them coming out of a giant cardboard box, and then in the movie they come out of a box like this size that's
yeah.
on the ground. So
Oh,
yeah, it's me and you would have went crazy with this thing if we'd have had that at our disposal.
it was definitely yesterday I was doing one of the Twilight Zone live chats, right? And he was like, "Oh yeah, I write some of the Sci-Fi 5 episodes, so I'm on IMDb." And so I was like, "Oh, I'm on IMDb too." So he looks it up and gets the
What did he find?
oh,
All your credit?
he thought it was great because all but one are Gonzorific stuff, right? Because he was like thinking maybe I got credit for the Sci-Fi 5 one as well, but
Hmm.
but he was like, well, maybe because like when they started it, like they'd have actual celebrities reading the script. So you might get like Q reading your script, which it's too bad I jumped in a little later on the game because it's just the same five people now. But
Oh
yeah,
man,
early on they had Gates McFadden and John Delancey doing some of the scripts and stuff. I'm like, oh, how cool would that be if Q read my script?
that would be incredible. God, see, between you, yeah, like you started watching Next Generation as soon as it was on.
Oh yeah.
And so because of that, because I wouldn't have watched it otherwise, because we were all Star Wars, not Star Trek. Not that you couldn't be both, because we were definitely Prince and Michael Jackson. But like, uh, you had the action figures of the Next Generation.
Yeah, I had that. I had the diecast. I
Mhm.
had the diecast Enterprise D. Of course, now what I have is the diecast Millennium Falcon, right? So,
Aha, who
um,
won? That's right.
no, Trek
I'm kidding.
probably won. And I got three. I got a gold shirt and a Discovery. One of those like printed uh jumper things
Sure.
in my
Yeah. I
closet.
mean,
So, oh, and that
no,
that the infamous model of the Enterprise C, of course. The one where
that's
Luke
great.
gave it to me for Christmas, right? And he's like, "Why haven't you built it yet?" Because I'm like, "I don't know how to fucking build models." That's why.
Yeah. No,
so, so
I don't
last
either.
Christmas he gave me a Caesar head. That was cool, a chomping Caesar head, and then like model glue.
And Model Q with it.
Yeah, build the fucking thing. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. It's a vintage model.
Like, I'm sorry, but it's cooler just to have the thing and be able to play with it. It's like with the model, you build it, but it's too fragile. You can't do anything with it.
Because in the original conversation with where we were talking to Eric Stillwell, who wrote that episode, right? And he was like, it would be cool to have like an Eagle Moss style model where you just get it and it's got the lights inside. And I was like, yeah, that'd be awesome. I'd love that. So he was like, oh, here's a model. And in the show, we both specified it's not like we'd want to build it. We want a cool one that you just buy.
Right.
That said, I mean, it's a cool as tell thing to have in your closet. And maybe next time my parents visit, my dad actually used to build models, right? You remember those ships around the house, so you
Yeah.
know.
Oh, God, I forgot all about that. That just looked like it took a kind of patience and dedication that I don't possess.
So anyway, I said when my parents visit, which I think probably going to be in October or something. Maybe we'll try building it but I've looked at it several times. Like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with this.
Yeah, and it's
How do you do these stickers? What do you have to paint it? It's kind of
it's a
gray.
that's a whole culture, like and I would be too I wouldn't get away with it because if my daughter saw me doing that, she'd be like, well, we're making this pink and this is going to have a unicorn on the top of
Oh,
it.
oh, if we painted that thing pink, Luke would be very happy.
That's awesome.
um, hold on. I'm still trying. I'm trying to, hold this and still put the second screen on. Share a screen. I've just like forgotten how shit works. Oh, because I was using iPad Zoom yesterday for the chat. That's why. Whiteboard. Okay. So I'm like not used to using the PC. I don't know
Mm,
if I told you, or if it's the third time I'm telling you that I finally fixed the Jaguar.
no,
It
you can tell me that.
I had almost thought about like just selling it, right? Because I was like, oh, it sounds good when you record it, but it's just not fun to play. But it turned out it was not at all set up. And a Telecaster, you don't really need any setup. You just pick it up, you can beat someone to death with it, and then play a jam and solo.
Right, right. That's why
Where
they're so popular because they don't take any finagling.
and Stratocasters are fussier, but not that fussier. But yeah, Jaguar's way fussier. Like
Mhm.
even yesterday, I had to like adjust the bridge again. You know, Once you do that, it's great. But yeah, it's just fussy as hell.
Yeah, no, I usually will. How I buy instruments is I'll get a cheap one and then take it into the shop and just let them, you know, adjust it and everything and put
I
the
should
strings
do
on and
that.
off.
I mean, it's the cheapest Fender you can get, but
Well, that's the thing though. They make it play, just as nice. I mean, they'll file things, you know what I mean, and just
oh
get
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. Honestly, someone could. I don't care. They're not that sharp, but the fret edges are not like perfect. They are on the Telly and the Stratocaster, but yeah.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, the Jaguar is. It's just very. Yeah, it's a little bit like square
And
compared to the.
and then
Yeah,
mine has the bridge humbucker, so you can like make it play some real scum if you want. So that's nice.
yeah. Then you have to fix it back.
No, 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 no. I mean, it's just no. You just now the only real problem with it now, other than you kind of need to stick a screwdriver on every once in a while, is uh the knob that goes between pickups. I mean, this the little plastic part like always falls off. If I was gigging with that thing, it would be long gone.
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah.
Probably
No,
use
my looking at my gigging guitars versus the one I bought since I retired from that stuff. Nothing is duct taped down.
it.
Nothing is nailed in. Like it's all on the new ones. They're just like just off the rack and then taken to a luthier. But yeah, the old ones they're so banged up. But also, the volume knobs were all taped at 10, and and the switch at the top was the channel switch was taped.
Yeah.
Everything, those straps were like I took out the original screws and just put nails in. So nothing.
I Yeah, I sold my gigging telly 10 years ago, but yeah, when I sold I didn't have anything like taped. I never taped it. Of course, a telly you're not going to hit shit, so you don't really need to.
Yeah,
um,
no, I never changed. I always played everything kind of wide open on the same channel, and
but
so I
it
just
but it definitely had a lot of its finish fucked up, and there was like blood on the pick guard, that sort of shit.
oh, there's blood oh gosh, there is
So
blood
much
all
blood.
over the Les Paul,
Yeah, my
all
only
over.
be yeah, my Les Paul is the only kind of beat up-ish guitar I have, and that's because I bought it used and slightly beat up. So
Yeah, it was the very final gig I ever played with it, and I just shredded my. I think it was really one cuticle in particular that that caused the most of it.
mm.
But you're in the middle of a we kind of had one of those sets where there's no breaks and it's
Yeah.
like where am I going to find a band? I just
Am
anyways,
I
yes.
because my Les Paul one of the tuners is slightly bent, and in the bridge there's like a screw missing, but it's never seemed to be a problem. So I guess it's okay.
Yeah, I had someone pick it up once or twice and they was like, what's this, what guitar is this? I'm like, oh, it's a Les Paul Studio. It's a really great sounding guitar. And they're like, oh, can I play it? And I'm like, do you have a tetanus shot?
Yeah. No, no. I mean, I have a weird one. It's what is it? What's it called? It's a it has the bizarre name of a special junior plus and being neither of those at the same time. Because it's got like the normal humbuckers in both
Mhm.
positions. It has no binding. It's flat top. It's not curved like Les
Oh, okay.
Pauls usually are. So that's kind of weird. It
Is that what
actually
makes
has a
it a junior, or is it actually something to do with the size?
no, junior should be P90s, right? So I don't know what they're
Yes.
thinking. No, junior's one at the bridge, but this has two, and then a special I think is P90s, and this has humbuckers. So it's a confusing guitar.
Huh. Yeah,
uh,
no, it sounds like it, but
so it in sound it actually comes pretty close to like a standard Les Paul, right? But it
yeah.
doesn't look like one at all because it has no binding, and I think I like a flat top better anyway, so I'm not going to complain about that.
Oh, it's lighter. It's definitely lighter,
Well,
which is great.
mine, but it's not chambered, so it is actually not light.
Oh, okay, so it's still like a
It's
just a big
it's
block of wood.
yeah, yeah. It doesn't have any chambers inside, so I mean, I don't gig with it. I just play it. So that again, the Jaguar is pretty fucking like surprisingly heavy. So
Yeah,
um,
I wanted all lightweight instruments because of my back, so I
we
don't think I've played
and
the
you're never a
jazz.
Strat guy.
No, it was a little
That's
just too thin sounding for me.
that's why when I started playing electric guitar, I didn't buy a Strat. One because that was like the guitar you'd see everywhere at that moment in time, and two, playing bass, it just didn't feel right. After coming off of
No,
a bass, I'm like, this thing doesn't weigh anything. So a Telecaster, has some weight, so it felt right.
yeah,
Okay.
that's it's psychological, probably. I don't know.
Okay, I guess we'll go ahead and start this now that I finally got that on the screen, which took me
Okay.
like what 5 minutes to do. Welcome to Time Enough Podcast. It's where we dive deep into all the episodes of the Twilight Zone and beyond. This is Matt here. There's Andrew. Hi.
Hi.
This is a good episode for you to be on. The shelter, as we grew up across the street from each other. Although neither of us had a shelter. I didn't have a basement though.
We had
You
we actually
kind
you
of
could
sort
crawl
of had
under
a.
our house.
Oh, you could do. Yeah, you can crawl under our house too, but that's not a basement.
No, we had a storage room. That's about as God, I don't remember ever having to like go down to the bottom of the house because there's some inclement weather. You know what I mean? For some reason, I think we just successfully dodged every
Yeah, I
instance.
guess I guess you didn't technically have a basement because that was a split level. So yeah,
It
you
was
didn't have
yeah, it
neither.
was split level. So yeah, I would have. I guess we would have all gone to the storage room just because of the amount of motorcycle parts that were in there. Just
So
like get yourself under this. Get yourself under these handlebars, and you know
so
what do they
we have
say?
those newfangled one level houses. Is Marty the one complaining about the newfangled one split ranch houses that don't have basements?
Yeah, he's like, I told y'all. I didn't listen to me.
But
When I made everybody tinfoil hats for Christmas, nobody wanted one.
I remember when we had a couple tornado warnings or whatever, we would always go into that. If you remember my house, the central bathroom that had no windows.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that was the spot to go to, the go-to spot.
yeah. It
So
was like right across from your room.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then as a child during a thunderstorm, I would just like hang out in that hallway, not because the thunderstorm was dangerous, just because I thought the lightning was scary.
Lightning is scary. I mean, it can kill people.
Yeah, yeah. Turn your hair white, all that other stuff.
Oh God, that guy. That's what I'll always think of. How many times have you been hit by light? What was that movie, The Great Outdoors? That guy's in.
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't have remembered until you brought it up, but yes, I think that's correct.
God, I haven't seen it for forever, but yeah,
I
that's
just
the movie.
remember he eats the was it the horse testicles or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, and the oh what's the steak? The steak's good too. Yeah,
the old 96er.
the 96er. I was gonna say 69er, but that's not. I was like pretty sure that's not the case.
Yeah, you wouldn't
But hey,
want this
96er, that
blubber.
just flips the numbers. So
Yeah, that's what I found out what gristle was because he finishes and they're like, you ain't. He's like, of course I'm finished. There's nothing there but fuzz it like fat and gristle. So he has to finish. He
you're
has to
not
eat all that
finished.
anything put me off. I still don't want steak. Like I still to this day.
Oh, you should do the Japanese version. You rarely get fat or gristle. I mean, it's little thin slices, right? But
Oh no, thin steak I've had and flank steak I've had. Yeah, but no, forget about it. That whole thing.
because we
Wow, that
just
was
did
a
the
tangent for your
Korean barbecue a few
patrons.
days ago. Yeah. No, this is the episode, man.
Okay.
We're tangenting the episode. So I guess I'll start doing the trivia.
Okay.
Original air date was September 29th, 1961, and the script is a Rod Serling joint. Lamont Johnson directed this and 8 episodes of The Twilight Zone, all in all. He won Emmys for his work on 1985's Wallenberg, A Hero's Story, and 1988's Lincoln. Johnson also has accreditation as an actor, especially on radio, where he voiced Tarzan. Our shelter builder, Dr. Bill Stockton, was played by Larry Gates. He was H.B. Lewis on daytime television's The Guiding Light and appeared in films like Cat on a Hot Tin Roof and In the Heat of the Night, the latter of which he gets into a slap fight with Sidney Poitier. Jerry Harlow is played by Jack Albertson. He had a prolific career on television, but if you recognize his face, it's likely from his turns as Grandpa Joe in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory or as Manny Rosen in The Poseidon Adventure. Sorry, there's a lot of people here. I got a few more. A lot of actors in this one. Actor Sandy Kenyon may have not canceled himself here, but his character Frank Henderson certainly did in this episode. We saw him before in the Odyssey of Flight 33, where he played the navigator Magellan. He'd later show up on Knots Landing. Grace Stockton was played by Peggy Stewart. She had a contract with Republic in the 1940s, appearing in a ton of westerns, including a few spots as Gene Autry's lead. Though she basically had retired by the 1970s, she'd make a much later appearance as Pam's grandmother in a couple episodes of The Office. The American one for people that usually scream out about the UK one after you mention The Office. Finally, Joseph Bernard was Marty Weiss. Bernard was an actual World War II, then did plays about World War II, and ultimately showed up in the film Judgment at Nuremberg. He also appeared in John Sturgis's Ice Station Zebra and pivoted to directing on The Flying Nun. Of course, the Trekkie in me cannot leave out his appearance as Tark in the Star Trek episode Wolf in the Fold, though I should probably mention that's one of the few Star Trek episodes that I've never made it through. In the 90s, he collaborated with his son Sam on the script of Sam's film Payback. Payback, but that's not the Mel Gibson one or whatever. It's a different Payback with C. Thomas Howe or something. Yeah,
I didn't see that.
no, I didn't either. Because I was thinking that was it Mel Gibson did Payback, right?
That is actually one of the if someone's going like what Mel Gibson movie would you want to watch, that would be in the top
Okay,
five.
because that's what
If
I
I
thought when
had
I
to.
saw it. But then it was like 1995, and it's like that feels too early, right? And it is too early because it's a different movie.
Mhm.
Oh, I should, by the way, not quite a correction, but just I ate a bit of my own crow last week, talking about Montgomery Pittman. I was like, oh, he just came out of nowhere and wrote and directed an episode. You know, he'll do that like 5 more times in the Twilight Zone, and he already directed Will the Real Martian Please Stand Up, but he didn't write it, so I didn't pick up on it when we did that episode. But
Hmm. Okay.
that's we did because I recorded 2, and I was like, hey, where's this guy come from? You know, he's just like usurping himself right here now. Um,
Yeah.
but he's not like one of the main writers on the show, but he actually has more contributions than I gave him credit for. So, but he's not in
That's
this
okay.
episode, so I guess I should shut up. That's talking about last week's. No, I was the guy yelling into the camera, the phone. My phone is a camera in podcast player, so I was the guy yelling at it, listening to that episode, listening to myself.
It's good to acknowledge that though.
I will give you a prologue to read.
Okay. All right. Are we ready?
We are ready.
I'm not ready. I need to dry my teeth out.
So we gotta efficient size things where you can do that while I'm doing the trivia, right?
Yeah. What you're about to watch is a nightmare. It's not meant to be prophetic. It need not happen. It's the fervent and urgent prayer of all men of goodwill that it never shall happen. But in this place, in this moment, it does happen. Because this is the Twilight Zone, bitch.
All right. So I guess we have to think about what we would do if the missiles were on the way. The TV tells us the missiles are on the way. I feel like I get some, maybe you do too, but some geographical a geographical loophole because I live in the mountains of Nagano. World War II didn't even make it here. They were about to move the emperor and the government here because the it's in the middle of the mountains, right? So
Yeah, so
would
you're safe. You'll be fine.
I mean you could launch an ICBM here for sure, but even then it'd be Nagano. Say it's 50 kilometers away, but yeah. And I remember a few years ago when North Korea was first doing its ICBM test launches, one of my coworkers was like going insane looking at blast zones and stuff like on the
Is that right?
internet. Like, what are we get bombed? And I was like, yeah. I mean, I thought it was interesting at first. I was like, oh, that's interesting. But he was like actually concerned, right? So
But what but when you look at someone that's like that though, aren't there sort of kind of red flags before they start becoming obsessed, or
oh
do they
yeah, yeah, yeah. He would always go on about building his homemade catapult and stuff, which I don't think he did, but maybe he did. If he did, good for him. But I guess he is the guy that ultimately builds the shelter.
Mhm. That's what I mean. They not to jump too far ahead, but the whole thing is like, oh well, we really learned a lot about each other. And like, come on, did you? If y'all know each other even a little, forget that. Forget that. We don't live in the times of that unless you have a lot of money where everybody knows everybody in the neighborhood and everybody's, friends and getting together and having these dinner parties and stuff like that. I just don't. I mean, I don't even tell you the name of anyone. And I've lived here like, oh gosh, since 2004, I think was when we bought this house. I have no idea who my neighbors are. If there was an incident like what is happening here, um, God, I hate to say this, but most of them, I would hope that they would be directly hit by that bomb.
I'm thinking about my neighbors here. Oh, of course, I got the language gap too because Japanese is not my
Oh
first
no, there's
language.
a language gap here too. We're talking about like redneck dirt bags in some of
Oh.
these places. They were bought up by a slumlord. They were all like, people were all homeowners here when the neighborhood was first built. It was
Mm.
built brand new around that time. And so yeah, everybody owned their own home, but a lot of people lost theirs, because a few years later was 2008,
Mm.
2007, and so the mortgage crisis. And so yeah, slumlord bought up a lot of the houses and just rents them to absolutely anyone.
Yeah, I
And
guess when we see this kind of a suburb in 1961, like to us, we're like, oh, it's just a whatever suburb, but it is a little more affluent at the time. It's newly built. I guess you would have to have a white collar job and be white to move in at that in 1961. So,
like a
uh,
gated community
I mean,
now.
Marty's the other because he's a Jew, you know?
I know. And boy, do they, man. I mean, it's one of those, not quite to the level of Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, which classically covers similar ground. But just having a quick burst of everybody showing their true colors, I think is just as relevant now as maybe it was back then. Because I think back then people were scared, and
Yeah.
rightly so, of
I mean,
the nuclear bomb.
yeah, I mean, I know what a few of my neighbors are up to. The people next door, they have a son about Hannah's age, so they go to different schools. I think the guy works construction. The only complaint I would have is he likes to smoke on his front porch, and in the summer, my window's open and I get to smell all of his smoke.
Yeah.
So that, but that's not like a major complaint. And then two doors down is a piano teacher. I only have a mental picture of what she looks like. I just know well, I hear piano coming out of there a lot too. So that reminds you. But yeah, I mean, I don't really like know neighbors.
But you're fairly certain that, are you at least are fairly certain that they wouldn't come busting your doors down and murder you for your beef jerky.
Yeah, we don't have any redneck scumbags for sure on this street.
I
But
call them dirt bag because I want I anyway. It seems better fitting because I've in my life known people who refer themselves as redneck, but it's more of a culture rather than a racist good old boy kind of thing, which I always thought that's what it was. But
We just
because
have
there's
weird Oji-san, weird old men, you know. There was
because
a
I know like
headline.
rednecks of uh different races and stuff like that.
There was a headline because I mean, there's horrible incidents in Japan, but since I guess there's not so many, so they make like the headline news, right? So
Hmm.
the headline, if you maybe not the top, but like no, headline number two or three was 93-year-old man hammers his 78-year-old neighbor to death. So the 93-year-old just came over and hammered his also not quite as old, but also very old neighbor to death. I'm like, that's pretty wild. I feel like we don't hear that news in the States much.
No, and plus it's like, all right, so is your presumably the other neighbor also lives alone?
Yeah, I think they both lived alone, if I remember correctly.
You know, when you're up to that age and your neighbors and you're at the near the end of your life and you only have a few years left, you
You
can
might as well
only,
hammer a dude.
well, I was gonna say it's either that or marry them, right?
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I'm sitting here seeing if I can find the article to make sure I'm not
No, I think
misquoting
there's more
things.
to it. I think they did date and it just didn't go well.
Oh, this is a weird one. 87-year-old man held for carrying knife with intent to commit suicide. That's the second headline on the crime news. So there's not a whole lot going on.
Hmm.
Oh, I don't want to read that. Okay, here's a few headlines I don't want to read because they're not funny. And I
Okay,
mean,
well,
it's
let's
not
skip it.
funny. I guess hammering someone to death isn't actually funny, but
Uh, I mean, if you think about using MC Hammer to kill somebody, it is.
okay, that's cool. Yeah, I'll give you that.
Or hammer in the like maybe the sexual term, maybe, you know,
Oh, I've already thought about that several times in this
or
conversation.
just getting them so drunk that they die.
But yeah, I guess. But what do you do? If again, I'm thinking, what would I actually do if they were like the train station next to me is a target now? I'm like, I guess there's nothing to do. Yeah, there's a mountain. Oh no, the mountains won't really help. It's a nuke. So yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
I guess you're pretty much screwed. We don't have like fallout shelters in the schools and stuff here. I guess America
Mm.
doesn't have so many. Oh, that wasn't in my trivia, but this episode did come out in a year where I think it's in the spring is when Khrushchev basically made if you don't like get out of these areas or whatever, we're gonna start sending the nukes over. A few weeks later, Kennedy gave him the finger in a speech basically, and
Mm.
in the summer of that year is when the big to do about fallout shelters, especially in schools, happened. So I guess at this point, because I was like, oh, well, you go to the school and go to the fallout shelter, but in 1961 was actually slightly too early for that. It seems
Uh, yeah. I
because a
mean,
year later they technically have the same shelter, but it now fits 100 people.
yeah. I think it was probably at least something that maybe no one had been talking about before that were suddenly just even in the age of the bomb were starting to be part of a conversation, if not like a immediate fear.
Yeah, and the Japanese emergency method in a lot of places is to go to the elementary school or I guess the high school or whatever, and go into the yard, like the field, like not
Mm.
inside because that's usually it's an earthquake or something, right? So you don't want to
Yeah.
be around things that can fall on your head at that point.
Sure.
So I guess a
No,
typhoon
I
you'd
wouldn't.
go
I don't have a
inside, but
plan. I don't have a plan for it. I don't have any weapons in my home, nothing like that. And so, it would be like the purge, but I think it would be the purge. I was waiting for it during COVID, you
what was
know.
it?
It's like,
It was
who's
Miracle
got the
Mile.
milk?
Is that the
Oh
movie?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's one Miracle Mile. That's a
Oh
kind
my
of an
God, that's a
interesting
cult
one to.
classic.
That's kind of one you can compare to this one though, because it's the same
Hmm.
situation, different stuff
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I do like the shelter for, I mean, for a few reasons. I didn't have time to rewatch it because I think we moved up from when we were going to talk about it or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
But it's also just one of my favorites to watch anyway because there's no it's not really science fiction. You know
No,
what I mean?
no, this has no supernatural because the uh what's it street? Maple Street had the aliens at the end, which didn't really need to be there. But yeah, it had like kind of the lights going out at weird times. It had a little bit of a supernatural element, whereas this one, nope, nothing at all. The dude just built a shelter.
Yeah, he had that, and I just love the little things that happen because obviously everybody's like, I've got a baby, let me into the shelter, and he's like, are you bringing your own air? Because we only got enough air for three people. This thing is a closet, you know. And
What if they
there's
opened up
also
a box of those Perriers from Spaceballs at that point?
right. We see that you've got space balls, the air, like let us in. And so there is I mean anything that's got like neighbor against neighbor to me is interesting because we are in the most like divided time I can ever remember in terms of like yeah, there's neighbors of mine that I'm just afraid will shoot me, you know, because their whole culture is like America. There's one that has a Confederate flag outside of it. There was one during the 2020 election that just put there were Trump signs um, all over their cars, flags on their windows, and they put one that was
American flag or a Trump flag?
no, both
Okay.
and they
Was
had the
was it like a
triple
red
whammy of them.
was it a red background with like a smiling black and white Trump at the center? That's what I want the Trump flag to be.
Oh God, mine as well, right? But yeah, they had the one of they also started they tried putting up campaign signs in the neighborhood, which I of course threw in the garbage. And it became this weird war between us because they then started making handmade ones and drilling them into trees, presumably that I couldn't take down, but I have a ladder and a drill, so I did. But I was like, what's to stop them from, because I assume they've all got ammo stockades in their house of bazookas and whatever else. I just like what's to stop them from just picking me off? You know what I mean? That's kind of where we're at. And so I like the shelter because um it just shows them everybody turn on a dime and they're moments away from really like you think, okay, well, cannibalism, let's not even wait, let's just let's start chewing each other's arms off. There's a scene where they burst in through the shelter door. It's like Night of the Living Dead, which
Yeah,
came
yeah.
years later. And so there's just a whole lot of it that I think still works really well. But the fact that Night of the Living Dead had zombies, so this has just human versus human. I think it plays really well now, probably more so than it would have as a kid when I saw it.
I remember you were never particularly a Simpsons guy, but they did a pretty good Halloween version of this episode with I think it's Ned Flanders has the shelter, and you got Homer Simpson trying to bludgeon his way in.
I can see that.
It's been a little while since I've seen it, but it was quite good. The Simpsons has several very good Twilight Zone redos.
Well, sure. I mean, they've what is it, a 20 some odd minute show just like Twilight Zone?
Well, this would be the Halloween one, so like 10 minutes. So
10
they're
minutes.
yeah, they got a good one for The Shining. So that I maybe they're still good at it. I don't know anyone that's watched that show since 2007 or so when the
Oh,
movie came
oh,
out.
oh God, I went to see the movie, but having not seen the show since it was new when I was a kid. I do have a friend that is a major Simpson fan, and so she watches it all the time.
Like new episodes.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
because I've had the question for years, like who's watching this?
I can tell you who's watching it. Yeah.
Okay, because we all loved it so much in the '90s, right? I mean, like they don't make the Twilight Zone now, especially not the original show, right? But
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I mean, we know people are watching this still, but yeah, I guess people are watching classic Simpsons, sure. Um, they say at the end it's not missiles; they say it's satellites. But I'm like, that could. I wonder if that was still like basically an attack, like a psyop sort of, like a real psyop,
Sure.
not like the conspiracy theory, but the Soviets were like, well, let's not start Armageddon quite yet, and just make everyone tear themselves apart with our satellites, because they would,
Yeah.
it would look like missiles coming in, so people are going to flip out, and
Mhm.
this is like it's almost like this is like a Soviet educational film or something, right?
Yeah.
Like the Jack Warner one where they show you the town that the Soviets built. Red Nightmare. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. No, it I mean, it does provoke conversation, and it does provoke thought, which is what any good Twilight Zone episode will do. Hold on.
Well, your thoughts sounded coherent. If that's is that what was you bet what you were getting at?
You hear the dog?
I do not hear the dog.
Oh, excellent. I'll
Okay.
continue. Okay, that's our edit point then. It
Lucky.
does what any good Twilight Zone episode will do, which is provoke thought and conversation. But thinking about the way the neighbors not only band together to turn on the guy with the shelter, but also the way that the neighbors turn on each other, which is, you mentioned it a little bit earlier about the guy who's Jewish and his family. He's got a, I guess they're the one with the baby, right?
Yeah, and the 3 month old.
Yeah. And so he's pounding his hand on the door, trying to get in. At one point, he says, even if you, okay, so what if you're the one that lives through this? You're going to live the rest of your life with blood on your hands. He also says, aren't you a doctor? Right? Or something like this. He's like, I thought you were supposed to help people, in your profession or whatever.
He's
Because
kind of
it
like, not
starts out they're having,
anymore.
yeah, it starts out there having a birthday party for this old man doctor who I'm sure is retired or something. But I mean, you kind of see Marty's side. I mean, that's the thing. Don't just put yourself in the position of um, the doctor, but also of, okay, so what if you did have brand new baby? I thought about a lot of people who became pregnant or recently gave birth during those first few months of COVID, how much more afraid they were than those of us who had kids that could feed themselves and make phone
Mm-hmm.
calls and do these kinds of things. Uh, I don't know how. I mean, you're already scared when you have a brand new baby, and I just can't imagine what that would have been like. So I thought about, well, what would I do if I was Marty, or what would I have done? I definitely would not have punched someone out though because I was xenophobic, which is something that reared its head, you know.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say like, I mean, the shorthand is like none of these people can handle each other anymore, and they all need to move to different neighborhoods. But I'm like, I don't know. I think Marty could probably repair his relationship with the doctor somewhat. It's is it Frank who basically goes full nutsoid. I mean, he
Mhm.
burns every bridge.
Oh God. So
Which
I mean,
him being the xenophobe, right?
oh my God. For me, I mean, there's visual moments and things like that. There's a few things that just really stand out. And keep in mind, I haven't watched it. I watched it just back in New Year's, which wasn't that long ago. But there's a few images there that really kind of get to me. One of them is when they're doing this, they've all got this battering ram. Instead of, because the doctor keeps going, y'all need to quit bothering me and trying to get in here and go, he's not like, oh, get out of here. I hate you all. You suck. Leave me alone. He's all telling them, you're wasting time. Right now, y'all get in your house, get somewhere. You can't fit in here, but I'm telling you, don't do this. Like, you need to go. He actually does care about those people. And he's trying to give them solid advice, but they are just, what'd you say? I mean, they've gone bananas, right? And so the image that really sticks with me is at one point they kind of all round the corner, and it's these, not just these men, but it's their wives and their kids. They're all like learning and seeing this stuff, you
Oh
know?
yeah, that's some Prince, right? Except for maybe the 3 month old.
No, no, yeah, but still, like that to me. Do you remember? And well, maybe not because you're in Japan. In the United States, um, we at one point had these like election denier things that just refused to believe that Trump did not win a second election. He just was not going to have a second term. And there was this image that came out of this suburban couple in this well-to-do neighborhood that the husband and or the wife just was outside with machine guns when there was
You're
some kind of protest going
you,
on.
you you're actually conflating things a little bit. I do remember that was the George Floyd
Oh, that was
protest at
okay.
that. Yeah, I
Okay.
mean same idea, but yeah, I'm just
Yeah. No,
saying
the
yeah.
election thing, that was the
That was people showing up with at the Capitol, right?
at the
So
Capitol. That looked like World War Z. And so I think about those things when I think about just how like, all right, well, um, Ozzy and Harriet next door. Why does Andrew think they might just turn around and blow his head off? Well, okay,
Because you
look what
watched
they.
The Separate too many times.
Yeah, yeah, no, they can definitely. I just think Twilight Zone sometimes really likes to like pick the rock up and look underneath. You know what I mean? And it's showing us our own animal nature, which I think even I don't have the speech committed to memory at the end that the doc gives when they're like, "Oh, sorry, it was just a shooting star, or it was satellite, right?" And everybody's like, "Oh, oh."
we
But at that
we
point, they've busted the thing open, and they're all like sweaty. The guy I think has punched the Jew, right,
yeah.
in the in the face, and then there's this moment, and it's the best moment in the whole thing, where they're just standing there like, "Hey, yo, I was just playing when I punched you in the face for being Jewish, right? It is cool, right?" And the doc is like, "Well, we'll just have beers tomorrow. We'll just be laughing about this."
Well,
But the way they have it's a single shot because you see everybody's faces. I think it's really important. And the doc, as at one point walks through them, and they're behind him, and we're seeing his face as they're all like trying to, you know, save face. And
I do have the closing narration. It's not his speech, but I could try doing my own for once. And
well, just there's some in the closing speech he does say something like how quickly we are to turn into just animals.
well, I'm just looking at the wiki page where Stockton wonders aloud if they were all destroyed without a bomb dropping.
That's it. That's so great. Like if they were all destroyed. I mean, he's right. Do you see this going back? I know you said earlier
It
that
might actually
you've
be a pretty
already
good Soviet plan.
right the but that's the thing though. There are there are there are right wing. I mean, you can't say conservatives anymore because a conservative is they're just frightening people, you know? They think people like me are going to march down the street with guns ready to kill them. Give me a break, dude. Show me that receipt.
I did
Like,
I did have a great story from the off mentioned Maddie yesterday, where he was telling me we were taking a hike around and going walking up to the onsen. He was like, "Yeah, I was outside of the," and this is not, maybe this won't make sense to Americans so much because I feel like the vibe is opposite. But he
mhm.
was outside the station. He'll put a mask on when he gets inside the station, right? But there's an old guy turns around, flips out, and then just runs away. He's like,
Yo,
ah, and runs away. The first noise he told me was an exaggeration because he made a really loud noise in the first time he told the story. But yeah, the guy just kind of like saw him without the mask. It's like ah, and ran in the
yeah.
opposite direction.
No, no, it's for real. I mean, here, um, with the mask on, which I still do, and I probably always will do because it's just a good idea, no matter what's going on. Because, COVID, forget it. The flu's bad. There's always something going around that's awful, and so, uh, but at the same time, and this could just be the divide with people, how they politicize everything. I'll be wearing my mask places, and people with no mask will like walk past me and start pretend coughing.
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
it's
that's
exactly I just described like the opposite situation.
yeah,
I mean, I
yeah.
guess the thing in Japan, there's no politicization about it, really. I mean, there's a
This is
cultural
ridiculous.
thing. There is the cultural, like, oh, this is what we do, so you should do it, right? But it's
Mhm.
not like political. The thing that I'm concerned about is most of the women in Japan have realized that they look better with when you can't see the bottom of their face.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, there's a kanji now for mask beautiful, right? So
Hmm.
and yeah, there's been a few times, now that there's people I've been working with for several years. I don't know what they look like, and maybe they're drinking coffee, and then I'm like, oh my god, that's what you look like.
Somebody that's like, oh god, what was that movie where the bottom of his face? It's the William Castle one, where you finally see the bottom of his face, and it's just like this, like he has no lips. I can't remember which movie it was. Mr. Sardonicus, I think, is the one. Oh God, it is terrifying. Like, yo, put your mask back on.
Well,
Start coughing. Get that
um
mask back on.
anyway, that I guess nobody's that's not a concern in the shelter, so nobody's concerned in the shelter about that. But I mean, yeah, obviously the situation ports over, but
Yeah. And so
considering, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I do, after I watch it, tend to think about, not necessarily the depressing realities of what that situation would play out with now, which was probably someone would have a gun, and there would be somebody would have died during that 5 minute scare, whatever it was. But also I like to think about, which is an entertaining thought, um, what does happen, you know?
Well, actually I didn't write in my notes, but oh no, I did. I said, well, if anyone was looking for a good time to move, this is it.
Yeah. I mean, what if they gave the doc a heart attack and he died?
Yeah, I mean, I get maybe the doc gets to stay in his house, but the rest of them have to move to new neighborhoods. So, but yeah, I mean, again, his Stockton's mistake in the first place was, I guess they said that we hear you banging your hammer all the time, so I know what he's up to. But if he could have kept that a little more on the down low, because they get it, they're like, oh, let's go
Oh
to
yeah.
the next street, like they do in Maple Street, and they're like, oh no,
Mhm.
no, 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 nobody else can know about this. It's already too many people that know about it now. So
Yeah. That's really, really true. Yeah, I would have definitely like done it under the cover of night.
I think he wasn't he needed soundproof his shelter. That's one thing for sure.
No, Also, they're lucky he didn't have guns in there, because he'd be like, oh, they were satellites. Cool. Okay, so y'all want to get in there? I'm gonna need to insist all y'all get in there. And, point his gun at everybody. He's like, oh no, come on, y'all want in there? Get in there. And then he just hits the destruct button.
I don't think you built. Do you put a destruct button in your shelter?
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. When you know that y'all are about to meet your maker, who's it
this
gonna be?
is a depressing shelter, though. I mean, as I guess it should be, but it's no blast from the past shelter. That's the best one, of course.
Now I will ask you this though, and ask you, do you? Because this is one other image I remember. So when the doc's giving his speech to all of them, he obviously looks completely flustered, but it's in black and white, but his face looks red.
Yeah.
Do you get that?
Um.
In black and white, but his face, just like, you can tell his face was red as hell for some reason. It's like
they
it's a
put
whole different color from his
they
neck.
put red makeup on him. To be honest, I didn't myself. I mean, obviously his subs his un his rage is palatable but hidden, I guess. So
Yeah.
maybe that I can see where that you translate into that pretty easily.
I don't know. That's every time I watch it, I always remember, even like when I was younger, I was like, man, his face is red. It's black and white. But it just looked like he had a red face. But yeah, no, it does make me think about what would I do. And given that, yeah, I don't have a shelter. I don't even have a shelter plan. Definitely no, I don't have any weapons or anything. I mean, I got a rubber chicken over here.
Now,
So
if I had like a few hours to play with, um, you know, I could go to that mountain they were going to move the emperor into. I know where it is.
so you kind of ish do have a plan.
Well, that's that. It takes a good at least an hour to get there under good circumstances. So not really, but I'm just saying I am near a place, not too far from a place where that legitimately was the idea.
Yeah, yeah. But it also shows, you just don't know. Even people you think you just really don't. You ever like go on a trip with somebody and find out, man, they're a real asshole. Or or like go on a long car ride with somebody and be like, you know what? You are a small doses friend. And this was a huge mistake.
Well, that's where a bunch of divorces end up starting.
Right? I've been COVID. Yeah, yeah. What if you would have let everybody inside? You think it would have went any better?
Yeah, yeah. I know. Maybe it's not as pronounced in the States as Japan, but there's a lot of people end up getting divorced, once the man retires and they actually have to start spending time with each other.
No, hey, there was a guy that I worked with in the newspaper named Pete, that he retired, and he and his wife fought so much that he came back to work. But the tag on that story is this is how he died. He was sitting in his easy chair. And according to his story, his wife just thought he looked like really bad. And we knew he had some kind of cancer because he started to get that puffy look people get when they've got cancer. And we kept saying, Pete, you need to go to the doctor, man. But he was like, I ain't been to the doctor since I got out of the Marines in '68. I'm like, is that right? That's not a fact I would advertise and be proud of. It was like, Pete, why don't you want to go to the doctor? Because I'm afraid they're gonna tell me something's wrong with me. Like, oh my God. Okay, dude. That's so hardcore. I don't even know what to do with that. But like, yeah, at a certain point, he got looking real bad. And yeah, the story was his wife went over and just looked at him like he looked like he was gonna die. And he just goes, what? And then he dies.
I don't know. I think that's the way he wanted to go. So sure.
I mean, it's kind of legendary. But considering that he worked on an urbanite press, it would have been, I guess, almost like fate if it had eaten him Mangler style.
That would have been cool. Just
I don't
don't
know.
get
Not,
near the mangler. All you need to do is not get near the mangler. That's it.
come on.
Say,
God,
don't put your arm in the mangler.
no, seriously. Like there's a stop bar. The stop bar won't stop it. But like, no, you wouldn't want to be involved in the cleanup on that. Once a bird flew into it,
Ooh, okay. That's
and it
the
was
real life
there's a
version.
lot more inside a bird than you would realize. I hate to
Um,
say. That's gross. I'm sorry.
looking at this episode again, does anyone go into the Twilight Zone?
Oh,
I
I always tell
rephrased the question
myself,
slightly.
yeah, no, I always tell myself, think about this, man, before you go on his show. And I never do. Who will go to the Twilight Zone? Um,
Again, no supernatural element here.
no, there's not, but still we have a definite element of massive change.
Reality is massively changed for those 5 minutes, and then they have to deal with the comeuppance.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're all at this nice dinner table that later on in the episode, when they're running through his house with a battering ram, they just, without a thought, go right through that table where they'd been having their birthday party for him. You know,
I
that's
guess they
another
had to
like,
pay royalties to the birthday song people because this has a full-on birthday song at the beginning.
oh, does it?
Yeah, they did. It's not some alternate one like "It's your birthday," like the Mickey Mouse one or something. Yeah.
Sure. Like, yeah, you can always tell when you're watching something that was pre the birthday song entering public domain or whatever. So who goes to the Twilight Zone? You said you thought Marty probably was able to patch things up with the doctor.
Frank definitely not.
Yeah.
He fully Twitter canceled himself, but in 1961.
God. Yeah, but there's some guys just like him on there right now.
That's why I
Um,
wrote it that way.
yeah, no, exactly. No, what I'm trying to decide is the group other than the doctor goes to the Twilight Zone, or
The
does he go
doctor,
with?
well, his wife is flipping out about the situation, right?
Oh God, she had one foot in the Twilight Zone, didn't she? Like there was a part where she was like, "What's the point? Why don't we just?" She basically insinuates they should just kill themselves. And then you hear the little boy's voice. Uh, they have a son who's like a 10,
12 is no, you say
12.
12 because I wrote
Yeah,
in my first note, I wrote 8 because I'm like, an 8-year-old should know what that Conrad warning means. And a
yeah,
12-year-old definitely, because he's like, I know, I just heard this. I don't know what that means. Duh.
yeah, yeah. No, but he has to actually remind her because she's been like breaking stuff and just all over the place.
She
He has
killed
to
the
actually
water.
remind her. Yeah, yeah. Oh God, that was remind her that, hey, we got a kid, man. We can't just leave him by himself, you know? And so maybe it's her.
Okay. How about Frank? Is Frank just a prick?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, Frank's gonna be president one day. That's what happens to Frank.
Yeah. That's the other thing. I think Marty, like he's the first one that really tries to get in, right? Or is he the
Yes.
second? Yeah. Like, I mean, he's a
No,
little
no,
aggressive about,
no.
but
There's a guy
maybe he's the
before
second.
him that
Yeah.
beat
Okay. And anyway, the point is I mean, he does say several things that are not cool, trying to get in, trying to guilt trip him, right?
Yeah,
But
but
he
he's
pulls
desperate.
back, and he does seem to kind of very quickly regret his actions. Frank does too. His were just so extreme, you can't just regret them after them, you
No,
know?
there's no walking back. The all of Frank's choices.
I guess we're kind of talking about who deserves the situation already, but I'll throw the question on the table. Um, Frank, I mean, maybe we're on a trajectory. Frank is fully deserving of what happens here because of his actions.
Yeah, I think if nothing else, just putting myself in that place, and I could be anyone, one of the wives, anybody. Um, we would never trust Frank again. As a matter of fact,
No,
we would never want to speak to Frank again, probably.
that's why I'm like everyone has to move to new neighborhoods now.
Yeah. No, definitely. No, yeah, no coming back from it.
How about Stockton then? What is his deserve level? Because he thought ahead, he took action. His plan until other people show up, his plan is going as it's supposed to. No, he didn't include other people in his plan, but it is for his family. It's not for him. I mean, again, this is where the timing of when this episode came out was is so interesting because a year or two later, the neighborhood does have the fallout shelter to go to.
Yeah, yeah.
But, and
Stockton is he's chastised for having like spent money on like a modern architecture and presumably lavish parties and things like that instead of like doing what Doc considers to be like practical expenditures or practical planning.
I think Stockton is a doctor. I think you mean Frank.
Frank.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Sorry, is it sometimes it's yeah, Stockton's the doc. Okay.
Okay.
When you only deal with these people for one episode and it's a different set every week, it does get a little, you gotta double check those names sometimes.
No, I was just referring to him as the doctor this whole entire episode. So that
Yeah,
split
yeah.
me.
Um, so there's one other guy, I guess, that just is I guess that's the is that the Grandpa Joe role where he's the other family, but we've been talking so much about Frank
Marty.
and Marty. There was one other guy, so he seemed like I guess I mean he was the first or the last. I forgot the order, but he left the least impression. Does that mean
Mhm.
he was the most responsible in this situation of the mob?
I mean, one could say that, I guess. I
I mean,
mean, one could safely say that because we know what we know about everyone else.
he still got his name on the doctor's poopy list now for sure. But
Oh, yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, it's I guess it's like Frank is like wild id, I mean, so this Frank is right in goes right in with Frank Booth almost. Well, Frank Booth has a few other things going on for sure, but you could see that, right? But
Yeah.
Marty's kind of the emotional plea. It's like you can kind of forgive the emotional plea, even because it wasn't logical, of course, but his
No,
seemed
but
more.
that's what I was saying. Like, I gone through something like COVID with a small child, there's no telling the paranoia that I would have had.
Yeah. So I guess Marty doesn't deserve to be stuck in the situation where now he knows that some of his neighbors are racist against him
Yeah.
and so on.
Yeah. I mean, that party that they're planning, I'm like, who's gonna be there?
He'll be there.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna have my own party, but no, you can't come, and you can't come. As a matter of fact, I'll kill you if you come.
So yeah,
Matter of
not
fact,
not
when I leave, I'm pissing in your yard.
is this neighborhood now worse off? No, the Maple Street one's worse off because when we
No,
fade
yeah.
away from them, they're all shooting each other.
Oh God, yeah.
Okay,
No,
so
no. This is a much lighter, you know. Yeah.
but I guess we get a lot more just like with the pummeling the door down and punching the dude in the face. I guess it feels more visceral here, but
Well,
they
they're
come
quicker to
back.
action.
They come
Yeah.
back from it. I mean, maybe they can't get along at all anymore, but they come back from it. Whereas the Maple Street, there's that's it's going to be battle royale by the morning, right?
Yeah, no, it's bleak as hell. I mean, yeah. That's why it's Maple Street. I mean, uh so it sounds like I mean, do we maybe want to just agree that it was that last guy, the one we know the least about, or do we want to say it's Frank? His life is forever screwed, I would imagine. I mean,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
was I would be comfortable saying him.
Oh, right, for sure. And he's yeah. Well, let's tripometer it. Where do you want to go on the tripometer for this one?
Oh my gosh. I mean, the ending is pretty well telegraphed. If you've seen Twilight Zone, you kind of know that they're not all gonna. I mean, you think okay, somebody could die, but most of it, I think the ending is telegraphed just a little bit. I don't think anyone feels they're actually in danger, or if it is, you know what I mean?
Mm.
Um, but because, like you said, there is no aliens, there's nothing weird about it. You used a better word. What the heck? Supernatural. Um, I think it would be low for me because it's very realistic.
Okay. Low like
So,
0, low like 1.
yeah, this is maybe the lowest on the tripometer I've given anything. So definitely below two.
Okay. I'm going to give it a 2, and not for any reasonable reason, simply because several sequences in this, especially when they're getting into the shelter, looked exactly like 50s educational films.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if
Except for
I
her
would have.
breaking the water bottle, that all played like some of the 50s like
Okay.
duck and cover sort of films. So,
Okay.
which was
Perfect.
probably intentional because they'd seen that sort of thing recently, right? So, um
Yeah, that would have been all. I mean, yeah, it wouldn't have been out of the ordinary at all for people to imagine themselves in this situation back then.
right, right. So it gets a 2 for my personal association with goofy
Gotcha.
educational films.
Okay.
um as we're wrapping up, what's up in your universe? I guess it is now late March, if I remember correctly.
Late
Early
March.
April, late March. It's late March,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Well, my name is Andrew. Once again, my friends and I make movies, and we call ourselves Gonzorific, Gonzoriffic. I was recently interviewed, a published interview from a Voyage ATL magazine, and just kind of talking about what we do and why we do it. At this point, we are planning some movies that we're going to film this year, and also I'm working on my first book. And so all of that's kind of in the mix. I can say this: I will be returning to Knoxville, Tennessee, first weekend of June to film another movie with the crew that was in the movie Three Hole Punch that's currently found on our Jugsaw Blu-ray. So you can buy that physical copies at gonzorific.com. You can also stream our movie Bad Girl Dracula on the Reverie streaming site, Revry. Our movie Goodbye Dolly, which you are in, was called Dollface when we made it. That is available on streaming on Plex streaming service. And last, and this is kind of new, if you have Tubi, Tubi streaming service that has everything, they now also have Gonzerfic. We did episode 2, I believe it was, of a show called Found Footage, the series, and that was actually made during the pandemic. The vaccine was not out yet, so it's a true pandemic movie.
All
It's
right.
called Stop Copying Me.
I'll copy you if I feel like it.
Stop copying my butt.
This is Time Enough Pod. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter under that name. On Patreon, you can support us at Podcastius, where we do a bunch of other podcasts coming soon. We've been doing sci-fi films. We're changing the formula a bit, and we're going to look at the top 100 and bottom 100 films as rated on IMDb, with a rename of the podcast being Films and Filth, the Citizen Kane of Podcasting. But yeah, so if you want to hear some really good movies, some really bad movies, that's starting in April. The first two, just to give you a taste, number one is Ikiru, the Kurosawa film. Film number two, 2001: A Space Travesty with Leslie Nielsen. So we'll see how quickly this drives us nuts.
Yeah, and what did I say? I own at least, if not a half of the bottom 100, a good portion of the bottom 100.
And so far, you're the only one to claim bottom 100 ones, which I
I'm,
think.
I mean, if we do end up covering like everything that's on that list or whatever, I mean, if it ends up I've got to cover most of them, like watch one that I maybe haven't seen, I'm into it. I'll even watch one of those Larry the Cable Guy things or one of those like Kirk Cameron thing. I'll do it.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah, we got Cameron's definitely somewhere. Yeah, I think he comes up twice.
I'm sure
It might be the
definitely
later
does on
Left
the
Be
human
I
being
think it's the
list.
2016 or 14 Left Behind that's on the bottom 100 list, which I think is the one Nicolas Cage shows up in.
Yeah, Cage did that one. Yeah, because
Yeah,
and you've
yeah.
got his Wicker Man on there too, which is fabulous.
Yes. Okay, well anyway, I'm gonna go head to my shelter. Don't follow me.
I'm not going to, man. I'm gonna go into my conversation pit.
Okay, wrap it up there.